So, Ayrton, thank you so much for taking some time out to talk to us today. First of all, I must ask, how is lockdown going for you, and what have you been doing to kind of keep yourself occupied during this very, very difficult time?
So far, it's been a bit challenging. I think the first couple of weeks were the hardest,
Hmm.
adapting to not doing anything not doing anything, but doing everything at home.
Yeah.
And to keep busy, to be fair, at the start, it was all to do with fitness, trying to do as much as possible. Online calls with my team, going through circuits and going through some data for, future test sessions that might happen, might not happen.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, I mean, recently I just joined the iRacing club and
Yeah.
I've been extremely busy trying to set up a simulator and getting all that sorted. So for the last week, I've just been really busy with that. So yeah.
Yeah, a lot of racing drivers up and down the ranks, such as Formula One and Formula Two, and even lower, are delving into the world of sim racing. Was that something that you were, well, I imagine you were aware of it, but was it something that was interesting to you at first, or were you just not into like the world of simulation, whether that was iRacing or any other form of racing for that matter?
I was not really into. I mean, I'm quite old school, and I like just turning up to the actual circuit. I don't do a lot of sim generally before a
Hmm.
race weekend. I do some, but not as much as any other driver. Um, but yeah, I mean, it only came across because the BRDC contacted me about doing the race for the NHS as being a guest driver for round three. So I was like, well, yeah, it's quite good. I'd like to do that race. What do I need? Right, you need a PC that can hold iRacing, a steering wheel, set of pedals, and something to hold everything together. So, at first it was like, right, let's hold fire. Let me try, sort myself out and get all the right bits. So at the moment, I'm using my little brother's PC because he's a little gamer.
All
Uh,
right.
a set of a steering wheel and a set of pedals that I had from before. It's only a what do you call Logitech?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a set of them, which are all right.
it'll
Not
do.
expensive.
As long as the car goes forward and turns left and right, that's perfectly
That's
fine. That's
Yeah,
perfectly fine.
we
So what have you been doing to like keep yourself fit? Do you have? I'd imagine you might have some gym equipment at home. I mean, have you been going for runs or walks or jogs or anything like? So what have you been doing to keep yourself physically fit?
um, I have not got a lot of equipment at home. I've only got a standing bike,
Mhm.
which is better than nothing. So I've been doing that. Then I ordered some bits online, like a vest, a 15 kg vest.
Yeah.
I couldn't get hold of any weights or any gym equipment because everyone was just sort of panic bought and bought everything there was.
Yeah.
So
God.
I
Yeah.
couldn't get hold of any of that. So yeah, I've just been doing press ups with the vest, sit ups, going on jogs, everything with the vest really, and trying to keep things in a high intensity and stuff. And yeah, I think I wake up, go for a run in the morning, do my 100 press ups and my sit ups, and it depends on what the rest of the day I've got planned. If I haven't got anything else to do, I'd do a bit more because
Yeah.
better than just sitting around doing nothing and eating crap.
Yeah.
So
That's true. Yeah, that is true. I imagine there's been a few people gained a couple of pounds during this lockdown period. And kind of the final part on this, like first bit. How on a scale of 1 to 10, how much are you missing racing? You must. I'd imagine you've got that itch to get back behind the wheel.
15. I mean, it's been tough because
Hmm.
we literally signed a couple of days before all this coronavirus started appearing. So I was literally all my hopes were up, all the team spirit was up. We started testing, everything went really well, and it just I've only done a test with double R and it went that well. So it's just a shame that everything's had to come to a stop when you've
Yep.
got that sort of momentum building with the team. New car as well, which is very exciting. So yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely buzzing. Again, it's a new car and all these circuits, most of them I've never driven before. So I was so
Hmm.
looking forward to traveling and going and driving these amazing circuits. But I'm just gonna have to wait a little bit longer, I guess.
So, of course, we're here to talk about your racing, of course, and we all miss it for sure. You'd like to get onto the track, but let's kind of rehash what it was like being on the track for you. So, of course, grew up in Spain, kind of dual nationality as well, of course, British and Spanish. So, how did you get into racing? So, firstly, of course, how did your love for motor racing come around? I mean, was it just solely focused on Formula One, or was there other types of motorsport that you enjoyed? Maybe who was your idol, for example? Just off the top of the head, of course, we know that you're from Spain and you kind of grew up in the Fernando Alonso era. Yeah. And how did you get into karting? How did that road start? And then, of course, what was it like to race in Spain? And just how did you get into karting in sunny Spain? And who was your inspiration? Who was your idol getting into karting?
How did I get into karting? Well, I just watched. I love watching Formula One, and I used to always watch it with Dad. And my dad was still working over here in the UK, so I'd only see him weekends. So it sort of started to be our little way to spend time together. And then it's only because one day I said, I want to be up there one day and do what they do. As you said, the Alonso era, absolutely. He's my idol at the time. Him and Schumacher. So I wanted to be like them two drivers and have the battles that they did. So my dad said, look, you can't obviously just go straight into a Formula One car. You have to, they all started in go-karting. So we researched and, we saw there's a go-karting track about half an hour away from my house in Madrid, and just rented a cart out. And from the second lap I did, I was like, this is what I want to do. And it literally just went up there. And I think, my love was mainly Formula One. It was only probably the last couple of years I've started watching other stuff and got into motorsport as a whole, but I've always been very F1 focused.
Yeah. So Fernando Alonso, of course, you said there, idol, along with Michael Schumacher. It's very obviously Michael Ferrari at that point. Fernando, not obviously Ferrari at that point, but of course Spanish driver, sole Spanish world champion. What was the buzz like around? So not just for you, but kind of so, for example, when you went to karting races, was the photos of Fernando, was he kind of, the top dog that everyone wanted to be like in the future? And what was his kind of impact for you? And what is your impact going forward? I mean, I imagine you still kind of hold on to Fernando in your heart. But what was it like growing up as he was, hitting the scene? And, of course, when he became world champion for Spain?
As you said, everyone idolised him. I think he's the first Spanish world champion. So, literally, he had the media wrapped around his fingers. Fernando did. He had everyone in Spain that was sort of into motorsport, supporting him. So there was, my local karting circuit had posters of him up. But I mean, it was good because it was sort of a talking point really in Spain. It made motorsport grow. That's for sure. I mean, it wasn't a big talking point as such. Other sports are so important over there, like basketball and football, of course. And motorsport was like a late entry, so it was good. And for sure, obviously I do idolise him till now. I know he's had his fair share of tough luck in the recent years, not having the best car, but I believe he'll return soon. So let's see.
Wow, well, you heard it here first.
He's confirmed it. Wow.
I mean, we'll probably get into that in a little bit as well. But just last thing for me on this part is, what was it like if you had to kind of compare your competitions in Spain, competitions in Madrid, compared to karting over here or racing over here, as we should say? What was better? And what were the kind of the differences and the similarities from racing in Spain to racing here in the UK?
It's hard, really. I couldn't say what's better and what's worse. I think because when you first start, it's just the hobby is not really seen as something serious. Yeah. And the best times was when I first started, when it's just me, Dad, and my brother racing in Spain. When I moved over here, I knew I was pushing to go all the way, so it was more like it's still a hobby. It's still doing what I loved and enjoyed doing, but it was more focused and more centered. So it's different times, really. But I think the biggest difference for me to adapt to was, one, the conditions. Over here, I've done more wet sessions in the first week here than I ever probably done in Spain. And two is probably the amount of money people throw in. In Spain, the government, well, not the government, but there's a bit of poverty going on at the time, so people would just grab an engine from the shelf, and everyone sort of had this sort of similar equipment. So it was good to see. But I turned up to England, and I was racing my first year in Super 1. I was sort of thinking the same. We did spend a bit more money because we knew we'd be up against the best, really. And, there's people out there spending $1,000 a day to be in a certain team, and there's rumours that one of them had a $50,000 Rotax engine. So against that, Jesus. From racing with engines straight off the shelf, it's a big shock at first. So I think that was the biggest difference, really.
Yeah. That sounds great. Yeah. And obviously, racing in sunny Spain as I said, definitely a big difference, but adds to the dynamism of your racing. Awesome.
Yeah, it's been I'd imagine that was like a really big transition from obviously racing in Spain to racing over here in sunny England. Let's just say that. Anyway, so your career so far has been pretty impressive in terms of single seater racing. I've had a look through it, and also as well you also have chatted with Mike from F1 Fanatics as well about your whole career, and he knows a lot about feeder series and the lower ranks and stuff. Whereas like we are basically learning. We want to have a look and see what else is there to motorsport other than just Formula One for that sense. So you're kind of branded by the BRDC essentially and various other drivers as a rising star in the ranks of single seater racing. Does that come with some pressure as a driver? And kind of how do you overcome that? So for instance, like the thing that really bugs sometimes me when I'm seeing racing drivers coming through the ranks is that they're branded as the next Lewis Hamilton. Yeah. That just comes as like unnecessary pressure for that driver because everyone's looking at them going, "Oh, he should be excelling what Lewis doing the same what Hamilton did back in his karting days, and when he gets to whatever in Formula One, it's like, well, no, because you've immediately judged him without even watching him really, if you know what I mean. And I don't like that. I mean, Rising Star, he's a one to watch. Look out for him, he's good. Like. Back to the original point. So, does pressure come with that, and how do you get over that pressure?
Yeah, of course, it comes with pressure. It's a label, really. I think it's shown that you're recognised by an amazing club and a big club like BRDC. So, yeah, I mean, there's pressure, but there's also a sense of pride within you when you put them stickers on your car. You're known as someone that's recognised. Mm-hmm. So obviously there's a bit of confidence that comes from that, but of course they want to keep an eye on your performance and they want to see how you're getting on. And how do you overcome that? Oh, you know what? As much pressure as you can put on someone. For me, when I step in that car, there's nothing I think of apart from doing a job. I couldn't care if I had, I don't know, Red Bull or Ferrari looking at me and telling me I need to perform better. I think the best way you perform is by stepping in and focusing on what you have to do. And I see a lot of kids, for example, that are pressured by their dads, and you can see the difference when the dad's there and they're driving around in circles thinking, oh, if I don't do this, dad's going to go mad when I get out of the car or park. And you see the difference when the dad isn't there, he's working or he's somewhere else. They're complete different people because, they're not worried about what's going to happen after if you don't perform sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, and also as well, if you're turning up there and you've got the stickers on the side of your car, and then your other competitors are looking, going, "We've got to watch this guy. Like, oh, this guy's going to be he's going to be quick for sure." And as well, but I think as well in the sense that it's also like you said, it's a compliment that people are watching you, that people are branding you as like a really good driver essentially. So that also gives you that kind of morale boost as well, thinking, I'm actually being recognised. I'm working hard, I'm training hard, I'm racing hard, and people are recognising. Because if you think to yourself, I'm working hard, but no one's really paying attention. Why is this? And maybe you could down performances and stuff like that. What advice would you give somebody who is, let's say, just starting go-karting and maybe or even going into single seater racing for the first time? What kind of advice would you want to give somebody who maybe could be watching this, who might want to be in single seater racing, or let's say just comes up to you in maybe in a Q&A, let's say, and just says, I'm starting kart, I'm starting single seater racing. What advice would you give?
I'd definitely say, look, these are the two options, and it's as simple as that. If you're absolutely dedicated and you're willing to put everything on the line, money and lifestyle wise, then go for it. I mean, the advice is just be patient and don't, there's a lot of people out there that, see, for example, Max Verstappen going to F1 at 17 and then they're aiming to be there at that age when it's completely different. You can still be 21, 22 and be in F2 sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, personally, I wouldn't spend as much money in karting like I didn't, and save up the money for when you have to pay the big dollar, which is in single seaters. And and then another thing is another piece of advice is if you sort of like doing it and it's just something you do in your spare time, don't put, if you're not financially wealthy, don't put your family through all the stress and all the ag to then get to somewhere important and go, oh, I'm gonna pack it up. It ain't really what I want to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think those two really, and just keep pushing, keep working. To be fair, when I moved from karting to F4 after my first season of F4, I didn't know if I was going to be in the grid because I didn't have the financial support.
Mm-hmm.
And me and my family kept digging deep, kept finding, going out there, finding sponsorship and partnerships. And we got there in the end. And we would have never thought that we'd be doing EuroFormula at any stage. So,
yeah,
you've got to keep pushing and have faith, really.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'd imagine that you would have seen. I mean, actually, yeah. Let's discuss like the financial side of racing, because it is a big thing where people do have to drop out of racing purely because of financial reasons. Do you think that maybe racing in terms of the lower ranks like karting and single seater and any other forms of motorsport, whether that's GT or anything, do you think that there should be like a cheaper way of doing it? Because I'd imagine that there's been a few drivers who you might have raced against and you've looked at and went, this guy is quick, like F1-esque, like this guy's going to be big. But then he has to drop out because he hasn't got the financial backing anymore. That must be frustrating to see, knowing that this guy could have made it, but he hasn't because of money. So do you think there should be like a cheaper way of going about racing?
Yeah, of course. Obviously, the cheaper the racing is going to be, the more you're going to give the chance to drivers that haven't got that privilege. So, there's lots of other ways. Of course, it's going to be expensive. You're traveling all the way around the world with trucks and you got to buy all these expensive cars. But, I think some of the teams out there sort of, it's like a business. They don't care who comes into their team. If they pay X amount, we'll get your son or your driver to be as quick as everyone else. And they're doing an amazing job at it, but you got all the money, and that's what you're up against. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that there's many ways it could be cheaper. I don't think producing cheaper cars is the way, to be honest, because there's more into it, and I think at the moment there hasn't been enough work done. But I see people focusing on bringing the money side of things down in Formula One. So hopefully, if they find a method that works in F1, hopefully they can bring it down to F2 and all the lower categories. So I think within the next few years we'll see. But at the moment, it's incredibly expensive, and it's, in my words, out of control, really.
Yeah, it is, and yeah, it just hinders some racing careers at some point. Last point on this as well, like you've raced against some well-known drivers who are making a name for themselves. So, Tatiana Calderon, Billy Monger as well, Max Futrell as well, who's in Formula 3, and also as well a certain Manuel Maldonado. Now I'm pretty sure that you're kind of aware of the whole pasta memes that have been doing the rounds over the years as well. So I just want to ask as well, is Manuel, who obviously is Pastor Maldonado's nephew, by the way, for those who don't know, is he going to be like the next meme, or do you think he's let's not ignore this kid. This kid's good, because I can already see, like when he was promoted to, I don't know what formula it was. I think was he going to be in EuroFormula with you?
Yeah, EuroFormula.
Yeah. He got, and straight away I just seen everyone online go, oh, here comes Maldonado's like nephew, and I'm just like, a bit like what I said earlier about the whole pressure thing about he's the next Lewis Hamilton. Straight away people are like essentially laughing at him when nobody knows who he is. So do you think that? Again, well, obviously there'll be pressure for him, but do you think that should you really say no? Let's not judge this guy. Like, is he this good, or is he? No, this kid's a meme.
Personally, you shouldn't judge anyone by what their family are like. Personally,
no.
Each individual's different, and I've raced against Manuel a few years. I raced against him last year, especially, and yeah, he's a talented kid, and he's fast. I think. He struggled a bit last year with the car. Didn't really get the results he wanted, but he still won a race, I think. So yeah, and he's actually a really nice bloke. I speak to him during the race weekend, and he's actually a really down to earth person, which you wouldn't think, with a big name and stuff. Yeah. But yeah, I think he's talented. He's obviously quick enough to progress up to EuroFormula. So I don't know. It's something we'll see what the pace is like in EuroFormula. We've seen he's been quick in British F3.
Mm-hmm.
he's just got to be a bit more consistent in my eyes. But he's definitely got the pace, and I think he's talented. Yeah.
Yeah. Just going off also, the last thing you said about the pressure. I just wanted to ask there, because again, we've talked about this a lot. Of course, one of your favourite drivers, Ayrton Senna, presumably, his nephew, Bruno Senna, was in Formula One. And of course, there is many partnerships, there is many fathers who have been in Formula One or other types of motorsport, and of course, their sons have followed suit. So when you were saying there about if your dad's at the race and you would feel the pressure and he would perform differently if he wasn't there, do you feel like those kind of drivers, so for example, as we just said, also Manuel, even though Pastor wasn't a world champion or anything, he was still in Formula One. Do those people feel more pressure, in your opinion, because of what their fathers or brothers or whatever have actually achieved, kind of ahead of them, and they have to achieve what they have done in their life? So, for example, did Manuel have to get into Formula One and basically win a race? Because of course Pastor did that with Williams. So did Manuel think that he had to get to win a race in F1 to match what of course Pastor had done?
Yes, of course. I think I wouldn't be able to tell you because I haven't been able to experience it. But I'm friends with obviously Manuel. I'm pals with Jack Doohan. Obviously his dad is a massive superstar. But as anything in this world, there's the pros and the cons, and there's the stuff that goes your way. Like you've got the links, you've got the connections, you've got the people that should be looking at you. They are looking at you. You've got all the right people there.
Mm-hmm.
But then, of course, every time you step foot in that car, you know that there's obviously pressure, not only from people expecting you to do good, but obviously your family members or your dad or whatever has reached and has become and has reached their goals. So you obviously want to emulate what they did. I think it's it'd be hard to let someone as important as that let him down. But yeah, I can really say I haven't really been in that situation. But it might be tough for sure.
Yeah, it does sound tough, especially if you have that name of Maldonado. So I'm going to get quite job interviewy in terms of the questions here. So where do you find yourself in 5 years? What is your goal? What's the road that you're on at the moment? So kind of where do you see yourself in? Also a short-term goal as well. So for example, at the end of the season, depending on how the season goes ahead, of course. In the next few years. And what is the ultimate goal? Where would you want to see yourself? And whatever you want, of course, is achievable. So yeah, what is your goal for kind of the short term and the long term view for yourself in racing?
Long term, obviously Formula One. That's what I want to get to, and I'll keep digging deep until there's something stopping me from doing it. So yeah, that's a long term, as you say. In about 5 years' time, I would like to be, an F1 or knocking on the doors of being an F1 driver. Yeah. Short term, I think it depends how this season plans out, but I know that my team are working very hard to get a Formula 2 budget. So we're starting on that already. I mean, we've only just moved up to EuroFormula, and I work with a great bunch of people and my family also. That we're already digging deep to reach the step below where we want to be. So that's what we're working at the moment. I think it depends on how well the season goes. If I had all the money in the world, if I had a good season this year, I'd move straight up to Formula 2. Yeah. If not, then I would, if I had sort of an average year, then I'll probably have another year to try and go for the title. But yeah, I mean, all I can say is that we're working on that at the moment. We're working, to get all the way to Formula 1. And yeah, I mean, I know it's tough, and a lot of people probably think that, someone that's got the background that I have, that, shouldn't really belong there. But we're going to keep pushing, and until we physically can't go any further, we're going to carry on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the last question I've got for this interview from me is, of course, in your roads, you have driven for a team that was set up by Kimi Räikkönen. So what I was going to say is that in your road from car, and even if you start all the way back in Spain to where you are right now, if you had to pick a mentor, somebody that you've met on this journey, whether that be even just a few words before a race, for example, or someone who has done a lot more or a lot less, who would you say is the biggest mentor or inspiration that you've actually met and you've maybe spoken to, or someone who has helped you and guided you on obviously your road through Formula One and your road in motor racing was to hopefully achieve Formula One? Who would you, if you had to say like one person, who would you say there?
I think my dad would be the main one. I mean, he's been there from the start, and he doesn't come from a racing background, but it's surprising looking back at it now how much he knew. He bought so many books about driving and set up for karts and stuff, and he studied it all. That's how passionate he was with me. So yeah, I think my dad, and away from the family side of things, I think someone that I had a really good chat with was Niki Lauda, actually, in the British Grand Prix 16. And I said, look, mate, you probably don't know who I am. He didn't know who I was back then.
See how it is, old Nicky.
So I got my hopes down then. But yeah, I said, look, I was in Formula 4 at the time. And I said, look, just a bit of advice, or what do you think? And he said, just keep pushing. He said, I sort of told him that I don't really have much money and explained my situation. And he said to me, keep pushing. He said, it's as simple as that. And it's his one word. He goes, just keep pushing, mate. It will come. If you have that passion and that desire to get there, you will get there. And you obviously tell me when I get there. But obviously, it's a shame he passed away last year. But he was really, his way of thinking is so direct. And if he wants something, he goes and gets it. And I sort of like that sort of mentality. So yeah,
definitely, yeah. And what did it mean to you to see Nicky, to talk to him, and also for him to pass on those words? I mean, as you said, very simple but effective. Just keep going, keep pushing. What did that make you feel at that stage? At
that stage, obviously, it just gives you hope. And when someone like that tells you that, if you carry on, you will get to where you want to be. Yeah. It encourages you to carry on. At that stage, I didn't know if I was going to be able to go racing the year after. So yeah. So it certainly gave us a good spirit to me and the family, and led on to where we are now, really.
Yeah. Well, that is absolutely incredible.
That's good.
Nick, an amazing guy. You couldn't have picked a better mentor. To meet him, that's absolutely incredible.
That is a good answer. That was actually a really good question. Actually, that was a good question. Well done. Well, you were going to be in EuroFormula. For maybe those who are still kind of in the know of how the ranks work in lower categories of Formula racing, whereabouts does EuroFormula kind of sit in terms of the higher the ranks of single seater racing?
I think it's between probably the national F3s and FIA F3. For me, you don't have to go for FIA F3. I believe you can go from EuroFormula straight, jump up to Formula 2. I think the FIA probably has a bit more power than the EuroFormula car. But yeah, it's like leagues, really. You've got the national leagues, and you've got the European League, and then the World League. Yeah. Sort of, that's how I explain it to people. So when people go, what F3 you're on now? I just say, well, European F3. I was in British F3 last year, and hopefully I'll go to World F3 next year. Sort of thing. That's how I really makes it easy to explain.
Yeah, I really hope you do. So let's kind of talk about the last thing to conclude on as well. We're just going to kind of get your thoughts on a couple of Formula One scenarios, because we are a Formula One channel. You said yourself you're a big fan of Formula One. So I don't know if you've heard, but a certain Sebastian Vettel has decided to leave Ferrari. You might have heard it. I don't know, because it's very little news at the moment. And obviously he's been replaced by Carlos Sainz, with Daniel Ricciardo going to McLaren. What's your kind of thoughts on that? Vettel leaving Ferrari and Sainz replacing him. Do you think that was a good choice? And Ricciardo going to McLaren. Can we get your thoughts on that?
I think there's a lot into it, a lot more than you think. I think Sebastian had probably the best years with Ferrari a couple of years ago, maybe 1 or 2 years ago, where arguably could have won the title once or twice. And for one reason or the other, it didn't happen. And now they've got this young, up-and-coming, really fast driver that's blowing everyone away. It's hard because Vettel has got all the history. He's a 4-time world champion. He wants #1 status. Now you've got a driver which has just came pretty much. Obviously, he won the Formula 2, done a year in Alfa Romeo, but in his first year at Ferrari, outbeating your 4-time #1 driver and 4-time world champion. Mm-hmm. So you've got a situation where you're going to have both fighting for that #1 status. And for me, I think Vettel is at that level where he will not take a second driver's seat. And I think arguably they probably agreed that it was best for them to just leave it at that. They had the good times, they had their victories, and it's a shame really, because you would have liked to see Vettel do a bit more with Ferrari. He did challenge, but you would have liked him to do a bit more. But obviously there's a lot more reasons, many more reasons behind that. But I'm not close to Sebastian or Ferrari, so.
Yeah, I mean, Carlos Sainz replacing him. Do you think that's a good choice, or do you think there could be somebody else, perhaps?
Yeah, I think Carlos is an amazing. He's only 24. I was surprised really. I looked at his age and stuff, and he's 24, 25. He's been around quite a long time. Not a long time, but he's got his experience. So we'll see. I think new team last year in McLaren, and he sort of got a bit of a slow start, but then he just literally kept getting better and better and better.
Yeah.
Probably just adapting to the team, how the car works. But amazing driver. And I think it'd be good to see him up against Charles and see, who can fight for that number one spot.
That'll be
Just
good.
one last thing for me as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, when you were growing up in Fernando Alonso territory, you could say, I imagine it revitalised Spain's love of Formula One. So, of course, people love Carlos Sainz, and I can say that I went to the Grand Prix. So the love for Carlos Sainz, even at McLaren, he had his own grandstand. It was big, but now he's at Ferrari. Do you think this is like kind of the rebirth of love love of Formula One in Spain? Of course, they might be dropped. That's not going to happen. But there's been talk for a few years now, and of course, I say he's now in that Ferrari car, like his, your hero and his hero Fernando Alonso was. So is this kind of a new era for Formula One in Spain?
Yeah, of course, it would be a massive boost. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and to see someone that's following the same footsteps as Fernando, it definitely gives them hope. Really, they now know that he's going to be in a race-winning car or a challenger. McLaren are quick, but they're not. Let's be honest and realistic. They're not as quick as the Ferraris and the Mercedes at the moment. They probably will be, and I hope they are in a few years' time. But yeah, I think it just gives them hope to have another Spanish race winner, to see a Spanish driver winning races again, which would be good.
That would be good.
I mean, from a racing point of view, since you're a racing driver, of course, what's it like being having teammates as well? And as well, like how much they get under your skin on the track? Because I imagine, off track, you're working together to get the car better or to push forward, but on track, you don't want to lose to your teammate, do you? So how much do they get under your skin, and how much are you like? Or is it not that bad in EuroFormula?
It's under their skin a little bit, because I can be a bit annoying, but it's complete. I don't know. It's a strange one, because you don't want to lose to your teammate, but if you're focused on beating your teammate, you're not going to be up there in the normal standings sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Well, it depends where your teammate's up, but I've always focused on the overall standings, and if my teammate's up there with me, if anything, is a good thing. It shows that the team have got a great car and they're doing a good job. On a race though, it's a bit different. I've had teammates that wouldn't be not letting people through, but quite nice and lenient with other people, and then as soon as they see you in the mirrors, they're like, hell no, I'm not letting you.
if you are beaten as a teammate, so if you have a teammate and he beats you, would that do something like drive you out of the team? Because obviously not using anyone as example in F1, but we've seen that obviously happen in the past. Ricciardo leaving Red Bull for Verstappen, and of course possibly Vettel and Leclerc, and as you just said there, Leclerc beat a four-time world champion in his first season. Yeah. Is that strong enough, in your opinion, do you think, to drive someone out of the team? And do you think that hindered Sebastian leaving, being beaten by Charles?
What, in Formula One or in the...
Well, in Formula One, if you would, just please. And then, of course, just like in your kind of leagues. And
well, yeah, in Formula One, obviously, you have to beat your teammate. It's a bit different than the junior formulas. You're getting paid to do the job, and if you're not doing the job as well as our other driver or other person working for us, you're obviously going to be on a pecking list.
Yeah.
So it's like any job in the world. If you go and do, you're working an office job and the guy next to you is doing a much better job, he's obviously going to replace you. It's as simple as that. But I don't think, in the single seaters, that because it's the opposite, you're paying for a service, it's a bit different. Yes, I think, you can have a team to focus more on you if you're doing better, but that just comes naturally, and that will develop as the season goes on. yeah, that's my view on it, really.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, we'll leave it here. We've chatted for enough time as well, probably, doing your head in us too. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you as well. Today, obviously, like, what's going down, what's happening at the moment. There's no racing going on for the time being, but yeah, hopefully we can get back to racing soon, and hopefully you can kick on EuroFormula. I think the season is supposed to start in June. Is that right?
27th of June, but Hockenheim have cancelled again, so
Right.
it'll be start of July. I'm pretty sure.
Start of July. So fingers crossed we can get to some sort of racing soon. And I think I'll be certainly keeping an eye out on yourself and maybe some others in EuroFormula as well, just to see how you're doing as well. But like I said, Ayrton, thank you so much for taking time out to talk to us today. As always, real pleasure to actually speak to a real racing driver. Like wow, never done that before.
Thank you for me. It's been a pleasure. It's been good chatting to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And what I will do, obviously, I'll leave links to Ayrton's YouTube, because I think you're starting to post videos on there now. I'll leave a link to your Twitter as well, so go and give him a follow over on Twitter, and I'll also leave a link to the interview he did with Mike, because Mike goes more in depth about his career, because Mike's a brain box with that kind of thing. So I'll leave a link to that. Again, go and help him out as well. Helping each other out. But like I said, thank you so much for joining us today, and obviously thank you everyone at home for watching as well. It's been an absolute pleasure as always. Don't forget to check out our channel as well and watch what you're doing during this tough time as well. And yeah, until next time, obviously be safe, watch what you're doing, take care as always, and until next time, we'll see you later.
See you later, guys.
Yeah, guys.